Hello, Prime Media audiences. This is Ladette Muleta joining you here at the Ambassador for Japan, Ito Takako residence. I am delighted to be here, and I'm very happy that Ambassador, Your Excellency, are taking a few minutes of your time to give us a few minutes about Ethiopia and Japan relationship. Thank you for giving me time.
Always my pleasure. It's so nice to have you here at my residence.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful residence and we're very happy to be here. I just want to touch up a brief summary of the diplomatic relationship between Ethiopia and Japan. What are your thoughts about our relationship between those two countries?
Yes, Japan and Ethiopia have a long friendly relationship which spans over 90 years. Even before we had an official treaty of amity and commerce, we had some diplomatic contacts in Geneva because Japan and Ethiopia were both a member of the League of the Nations. And then since we had the first Japanese delegation visiting the coronation of the Emperor Haile Selassie, we had diplomatic relations. In a sense, Japan and Ethiopia are both very unique countries, have its own old and ancient history, its own culture, and the leader of that region, I would say. Yeah, and we have a war, unfortunate period, but after the war, Emperor Haile Selassie was the first state guest to Japan, and we resumed the relations, and we also cooperated for economic development in this country as well through JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. This year is celebrating the 50th anniversary of JICA office here in Ethiopia.
Great, Your Excellency. I'm glad you brought up JICA because I was at the previous JICA event and I learned a lot of things about projects that have been already undertaken by Japan here in Ethiopia that I was not aware of, and then plenty more of future plans. What are some of the projects in general in regards to Japan that is taking place in Ethiopia?
Yes. For Japan, cooperating with Ethiopia is decided according to our country plan. And the current country plan, which will be revised later this year, is including the main areas such as helping development of infrastructure, helping the development of industry and agriculture, and also helping the education and health. Those are main pillars, and we have been sending our people from Japan to work with the Ethiopian people here, as well as cooperating with infrastructure projects such as A3 road, or we also helped EUTI, the Ethiopian Water Technology Institute, to have a lot of water supplies. And we're now working for the African version of Kaizen, Ethiopian Kaizen Institute, to be actually spreading throughout African continent by having this training institute here in Addis Ababa.
That's great. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. What are some of the measures that can be taken to further strengthen the partnership, especially in the business sector? I know Japan has came out super strong, after World War II, and have done such an amazing job in building the country economically. And there are a lot of things that Ethiopia can learn from Japan. What are some of the things that we can do to strengthen in the economic sector?
In fact, that is the topic that we are trying to disseminate through JICA Chair program, which we started last October. And then also again this year we had the second session. After the war, Japan lost almost everything. We are one of the poorest countries in 1945, losing the war, having atomic bombs, and also a lot of big cities were basically air raided. And so many people are hungry They lost houses, infrastructure bases. And we didn't have any natural resources either. But what we had is a human resources. And we had a very, very strong tradition of education. Education creates the future for children and for our society and for our economic development. So with the help of other countries, including the United States, including World Bank, we started to have our education system back. We also had some land reforms. But at the very, very core is the human resource development. And I think this is something we can share with Ethiopia as well. In fact, for the math and science education through JICA, we are cooperating to develop the textbook as well as curriculum, and then sending the teachers to work with the Ethiopian teachers and Ministry of Education.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Your Excellency. My last discussion point I wanted to touch base on is the cultural ties between Japan and Ethiopia. What are some of the things, because we obviously, when you have partnership and relationship between two countries, you want to do cultural exchanges, you learn so much people to people. What are some of the cultural exchange programs or exchange cultural exchange plans that you have for between the two governments?
Yes, Japan is having a lot of scholarships provided to the undergraduate and graduate school students with the government of Japan. It's called the MEXT program, and they would provide the full tuition and airfare fees and some living expenses to those people who pass the education. And I think this is a time to apply if you're interested in studying in Japan. We do have a program for undergrad in English or graduate level studies, as well as those who are interested in learning Japanese language and culture. They have a special category to apply for that as well. Last year we had Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games. It was a great opportunity to invite the sports athletes to come to Japan. And then we are very happy to see the interest in Japan. And traditional sports such as karate, judo, or the fencing, Japanese-style fencing that I personally practiced, are getting some attention here as well. So we'd like to help those groups who are promoting those traditional Japanese martial arts. And then May 21st is World Day for the Cultural Diversity, for Dialogue and Development. Japan has so many cultures of its own, including our traditional kimono, like this doll, or traditional music, and then the cooking, etc. So we'd like to have more opportunities to introduce. Last couple weeks ago, I went to hear the Ethiopian jazz music. And the Japanese are also jazz-loving people. And we have our own instruments, just like a mashinko, but also we have world-renowned musicians as well. So my dream is someday we'll have some joint session with the Ethiopian jazz musicians and Japanese musicians here in Ethiopia.
Sounds really wonderful. Well, Ambassador, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for inviting us to your residence and giving us your time in this interview. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you. Prime Media audiences, this is Ladette with Ambassador Ito, Her Excellency at her residence. Thank you for joining us.